Tubi has yet again served me up the most random, out of left field, out of pocket movie that shouldn't exist but somehow does. You Can't Kill Stephen King came out in 2012, and let's just take a look at this poster. We got a girl covered in blood, we got an axe, we got the Christine car, we got what I guess is supposed to be Cujo, we got Pennywise back there, and oh look, a quote, I wonder what it says. A sense of humor, creepy twins, and hot girl-on-girl action. Yeah, that should pretty much tell you everything you need to know about this movie. So let's get into what this movie actually is. We open in a van full of Wait a minute, those aren't teens. Those are 30-year-olds. We open on a minivan full of 30-year-olds as they're traveling through Maine. And get it? Maine. And they're going to visit Stephen King, the horror author's house. And they even get cute little character intro cards. So let's go through all 6 characters according to their intros. First we have Lamont, who is the token black friend, the expert navigator, and he loves the white girls. Then we have Nicole, who's an attention whore, self-centered coquette, and a great pair of personality. There's Ronnie, the Stephen King junkie, those other 2 things. There's Hillary, the bratty sister, know-it-all, and black hole of fun. Then there's Lori, the forsaken girlfriend, dreams of motherhood, and another great pair of... Then there's Monroe, the shell-shocked Iraq veteran, pasty white boy, and I'm not gonna say that on YouTube, but you can read it. I'm sure you can already tell where this movie is going. Who am I kidding? No, you can't. Like, what are we even doing? What is this movie even? It's kind of supposed to be a parody of horror movies. It's calling it out. Oh, look, it's the token black friend, and it's the creepy virgin, and sort of all these stereotypes, but they never really get expanded upon, and I'll expand on that thought later. So first, before getting to Stephen King's house, they stop by a diner where the waitress is just Kathy Bates from Misery, and then there's another table of a mom and daughter there. The mom's name is Wendy, and the daughter's name is Danny. Those are the names of the mother and son from The Shining. While they're eating, they ask the waitress, oh, hey, do you know where Stephen King lives? And the waitress is like, oh yeah, he doesn't live here anymore. Like, you guys should just go somewhere else. Then after they eat, they go to the boat rental place, and where this guy is working, who just spits a lot. I guess I'm not that too knowledgeable on Stephen King books and movies to really know who this guy is supposed to be like a parody of. So if you know, please let me know in the comments. It's just a guy in a jumpsuit who spits a lot. I'm thinking he's supposed to be some like a gas station worker kind of guy in some Stephen King book. I don't know. And even the boat rental guy is like, hey, listen, you guys should just go up to the next lake over, like, you don't want to be here. But the group is like, no, we want to be here. We want to like visit Stephen King. Do you know where he lives? And then the guy is like, oh, well, he doesn't like visitors. And then the group is like, oh, so he does live here, and the waitress was lying to us. And then the boat rental guy is like, no, actually, yeah, he doesn't live here anymore, and he's being sus about it. Anyway, they rent a boat because the only way to get to Stephen King's house apparently is on the lake, and you have to use a boat. And the boat has a name, Christine. There's another reference for you. And then so they go out boating, but Lamont does not go on the boat. Instead, he has to fill up the car with gas, and then he's like, I'll meet you guys at our house where we're staying. So they drive on the boat a little bit. There's kind of a long sequence of them just like water skiing and like going in circles, so much so that Ronnie gets sick and he actually throws up. And so they decide to drop Ronnie off back at the house and then he's like does the shining finger thing. Back to Lamont, he's getting lost trying to find the gas station, which I guess is the joke because in his intro thing it said he's an expert navigator, but he gets lost. And then he finally makes it to the gas station where he sees two twins, which is another Shining reference. And then someone is in the backseat of his car and kills him. And he's playing music loudly. That's an important note. So yes, the token black friend is the first person to die, and don't worry, I will be mentioning that later. The rest of the group is still on the boat. They're having lots of fun, but eventually a police officer comes by on another boat and tells them to stop having so much fun, and they're being really loud. And the police officer's like, you guys should just go home. And this is, apparently I've taken this from the IMDb trivia section. This police officer is supposed to be a reference to the police officer that shows up in many of Stephen King's books. And so the group goes back home to where they play a drinking game of Never Have I Ever. If you're a fan of the channel, you know how I feel about that game in horror movies. And through the shenanigans of the game, guess what? Two girls end up kissing for like 5 seconds. It's a slow motion shot, which is weird, but they do kiss. It's very short.
Wait, am I the only one who hasn't kissed a girl?
And that's the only girl-on-girl action that happens any time throughout this movie. So they put a scene that's literally like 5 seconds long, and they put that like on the poster because that's so important to let the audience know that there's a girl-on-girl kiss in the movie. Not even action, it's just a kiss. Now it's getting late, and the group is getting worried about Lamont. They're like, oh, he's not back yet with the car and gas, like we should go looking for him. So the group goes out on the town, and they find the police were at the gas station, and they're like, oh yeah, there's been a murder here. And then the group discovers it's Lamont, and they're like, oh no, like someone like killed our friend. And this part is weird because he's the first person to die, so no one else has died yet, and they're like, who could have done this to Lamont? Like, you know, what could have motivated someone to kill him and all this stuff. And it really sounds like they're just describing a hate crime, like someone like hate crime murdered Lamont. Because he earlier in the movie, Lamont has a little joke. He's like, oh, I'm the only black person in Maine. And then just the way they talk about him dying, and they're like, who could have done this? It really sounds like a hate crime, which is really weird. Also important to mention, Lamont, his body has been chopped up into different pieces. So they go back to the house, and they sort of suspect Ronnie of being the killer because he's awkward, he's weird, he's creepy, and he wasn't around with the rest of the group when Lamont died. And they're like, oh, you read so many Stephen King books, like you have a really sick and twisted mind, like you would do this. And so that's sort of the setup of the whole movie. As the movie goes on, more people in the group get picked off. I don't want to spoil who. You can go watch it on Tubi for yourself. But eventually the group discovers that they're being targeted because of their sound, because they're being too noisy. Lamont would play loud music in his car. Another girl who dies was like screaming, and like everyone, they're like, oh, people are dying based on sound, so we need to stay quiet. Once a few people have been picked off, the rest of the group is like, let's just stay together as a group and not leave each other. But they all end up falling asleep, where Monroe has a dream sequence that is the bathroom scene from The Shining, where there's a naked woman in the hot tub, but instead it's like his friends who are the naked woman, and then when they kiss, it turns out to be Lamont in Pennywise makeup. But he's still naked, but in Pennywise makeup. Eventually, Ronnie pieces together that the way people are dying are ways people die in Stephen King books, like Lamont being dismembered and cut up. Another person was beaten to death with a hammer, and another person was force-fed sand until they died. Eventually, Ronnie and Monroe are the only two people left alive. Where Monroe still thinks Ronnie is the killer, but Ronnie just says, you know what? I think the killer is the actual Stephen King. Like, the killer is Stephen King. But Monroe's not buying it. He ties Ronnie up to a chair, and eventually Monroe gets attacked by the masked killer. And so Monroe's like, uh-oh, so I guess Ronnie isn't the killer. So Monroe and the killer fight a little bit, and Monroe is actually about to kill the masked man when Ronnie steps in and like tackles Monroe to the ground and is like, I won't let you murder Stephen King. Like, this isn't the way to do it. Like, the murderer is Stephen King, but like, we can send him to jail and that way he can still write books from prison. Like, let's not kill Stephen King. And so now now Monroe and Ronnie like fight between each other, and what Ronnie does is he uses an air horn to trigger Monroe's Iraq War PTSD. And like, it's a really weird sequence where like your friend is just triggering your PTSD.
Where's Ronnie?
Eventually, Monroe is killed by the killer, and then we see sort of Ronnie cowering in fear as the killer raises their knife up to him. And then we cut to the end montage, where it just sort of shows everyone in town, like, acting as themselves, being weird, and it's sort of implied that everyone in this town is sort of part of the conspiracy. They know that Stephen King runs around killing people, and they just like accept it. They're part of the cover-up. They almost help him in a way. And eventually we see a new group of friends at the diner asking where Stephen King is, but then Ronnie comes up in a police officer uniform being like, you kids don't want to mess with that. So now Ronnie is officially a part of the town, a part of this weird ensemble of people. We see a man sitting in a chair from behind as we see him type on his computer, and he has a wound on his hand, the same spot where Monroe stabbed him. And we see him hit print, and a page comes out of the printer called The Quiet, written by Stephen King. So yes, the real, actual human Stephen King was the killer. We never see his face, obviously. I think that's for legal reasons. But yeah, it is Stephen King who is the killer. And now Ronnie is a part of this town, and Stephen King has written a book about it, which leads you to wonder, is like, in this universe, is like all of Stephen King's books like based on the crimes he himself committed, and now he's writing about it? I don't want to think that way, because then he would have a lot of explaining to do about that one sewer scene in It. Then the credits roll, and you realize this whole movie has been written and directed by two guys named Ronnie and Monroe. They were literally like playing themselves in the movie. I looked it up, and the real life Monroe is an Iraq War veteran, and so I guess he just wanted to put that part also in the movie, which is like, okay. So if that part of Monroe is true, then I can only assume the real life Ronnie is a creepy pervert. So let's dissect what I liked and didn't like about this movie, starting with the positives. This movie is weirdly at its best at the very beginning of the movie, because it has that very strong parody tone with the character intro cards and the weird like Stephen King parody characters walking around, and it feels like a nice fun parody movie. In the first half of the movie there are a lot more jokes. A lot of them don't hit, but some of them do. I thought there was one part that takes place on the boat which was particularly funny and sort of a parodying the genre, where one girl sits next to another and just goes, "So I hear both your parents are dead." And then, like, that was funny. It's like poking fun at the way people talk in horror movies of like everyone has dead parents and trauma and all that stuff. So I thought parts like that were fun.
So, I hear your parents are dead.
Also, this movie just looks pretty good for like a small budget indie movie that I could only assume is like a passion project. And so it's shot pretty well. Like the boat scenes, some of the lighting can be off at times, but I thought the boat scenes were impressive because it's always hard filming in a moving vehicle. And I liked the directing. It wasn't just like a student film, like shot, reverse shot for every single scene. They tried to use dynamic angles and shots, and so good for them. There is one part where someone gets, bludgeoned to death with a hammer in the middle of the woods. And I think that's probably my favorite scene because it was shot really well. I really liked the lighting. The suspense was good building up to that kill. And once the kill is actually happening, the editing, the quick cuts around it, and the sound design, I thought it was very good. I really, really liked that kill. But I will say the second part of this movie kind of feels like a different movie altogether. Once they realize Lamont is dead, things just sort of take a more darker, serious tone where sort of all the parody stuff gets thrown out the window and they're trying to be sort of more realistic about it, which those parts are fine. I think they played it well enough, but it just feels like this movie is split up into two different movies. Each of them are pretty good on their own, but when you put them together, they don't really mix well, which leads me into the parts of the movie I didn't like. Let's go back to the parody thing about Lamont being the token black friend. They labeled him as that, and they're like, okay, so now if it's a parody trying to make fun of this, you have to add some nuance, put a spin on it. What are you going to do? Nothing, really. He's the first character to die. It just follows the black character dies first trope and doesn't really add anything interesting or special or nuanced to that. It just calls it out like, hey, there he is. Now he's just going to die. I think it's trying to make like meta commentary about how slasher movies are really sexualized and all the characters are sleeping with each other all the time and really horny and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, this movie just does the exact same thing, like through the character of Ronnie. Again, there's really no nuance to him. He's just like a pervert who looks at boobs, and that's it. There's nothing else to add to that. And within like the first 20 minutes of the movie, I clocked exactly what I was thinking of and what I was feeling. I was like, oh shoot, this is written exactly like a Nostalgia Critic video. If you've seen the Nostalgia Critic, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the exact same sense of humor Doug Walker has. The way Lamont is written is the same way Doug writes for his one black cast member. And the way the women are written is the exact same way he writes for the nostalgia chick. It's like, it's everything's the same. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like the punchline of a joke is just boobs. Like boobs existing is the joke. Just like how a black man who swears a lot and listens to loud rap music, that's also just the joke. And you're supposed to find that funny. All this to say, I didn't like the humor that much, except for the one dead parents line. I would say, oh, it was 2012, that's just sort of the humor back then. But at the same time, I don't know, even then it's a little outdated. I don't know, Scream was more nuanced about horror tropes back in 96, so... And then that leads me to the second half of the movie again, where things get more serious. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, oh, well, if you didn't like the jokes in the first part of the movie, you must like the second part of the movie because there are less jokes. Well, that's the thing. You've tonally set up from the first half. It's like, oh, this is kind of a almost screwball comedy where we're just doing a complete spoof and parody of horror movies, but then you just completely remove that for the second half, which kind of creates whiplash. And for some scenes, they want like sincerity when they haven't really earned it because they were just talking about boobs the whole time. So it's like, I'm not going to feel emotion for these characters. So my advice would just be go all the way, go full like scary movie tone, spoof, have fun with it, because Stephen King is the killer. Like literally the real life, real person Stephen King author is the killer, and that's funny. That's a funny concept. That is a good joke, good thing to do. And yet you treat it all serious, like, oh, it's fun. Just continue the tone from the first half. So in conclusion, I don't want to bash too hard because this is a small indie movie, sort of just made as a passion project by really loving Stephen King fans. There's lots of fun Easter eggs and stuff throughout the movie that I haven't even mentioned. So you might have to go check that out yourself. or just look on the trivia page of IMDb. Because yeah, like I said, there's some fun direction in there. The lighting's pretty good most parts, and the acting, despite having maybe some rough dialogue here and there, it's pretty good. It's a lot better than some of the other horror movies I've seen on Tubi, I'll tell ya. It's hard to make a movie in the first place, but even harder to make one on such a small budget, and one that is probably legally very risky when you're using a real life person as the killer. So props off to them for even making this and distributing it in the first place. It was a fun watch, and if you're a Stephen King fan, sure, it's only an hour and 20 minutes, so go check it out. And if you like this video, I have a whole lot of other videos on this channel where I talk about weird, small, sort of Tubi indie horror movies. Some of them better than this one, yeah, but go check those out, and you'll just have to see for yourself.